Colbyjack.net is proud to present From the Flames by Trisha M. Wilson. The people of the fire, the Blesa, led by their queens, have ruled the island of Alfeyju and oppressed the Driva, the people of the ice, for more than 16 generations. With the Drivian King in hiding and little hope on the horizon, the Driva looked to one person to save them from the vile Blesa, the Diviana. According to legend, the divinely gifted Diviana will one day overthrow the Blesa and restore the Drivian King to his rightful throne. But with the search having lasted for more than 400 years, will the Diviana ever come to light? Willow is the slave of the Raskpil family. But at the age of 4, 20 years have passed since her life irrevocably changed. Her existence is no worse than any other slave, but within, Willow wonders if there isn't something more she should be doing with her life other than serving the ungrateful. Ordered to travel with her master's family to Sondertoft, so her master's adult children can take part in an ancient rite of passage, Willow is shocked when she learns that she too must participate. Will she fail, as all before her have? Will she rise to the challenge and become stronger after passing through the flames? From the Flames, Episode 18, Chapter 9, Queen Silverlyn. The Blesian Palace of Nanfrid in the capital city of Eldrun. Sitting on her bejeweled throne in her great hall, Queen Silverlyn of Blesa awaited the messenger with news from Sondertoft. All around her, people murmured quietly along the room's edges. None wanted to attract her attention, for even on the best days, she could be ruthless to those who disturbed her. Surrounding her were glistening white marbled walls which rose high into the sky. High on each wall were 6 large windows, bringing their light into the hall, illuminating all who stood in the center of the room. The light also made the edges of the hall all the more shadowed, allowing people to come and leave without attracting the queen's attention. On the large ceiling, there were beautiful murals of the Blesa's greatest moments. From the time they'd first set foot on Alfeyju to the time they've taken over the weak Driva, these different scenes were captured by the best artists of their age. Hanging from these works of art were 3 large chandeliers. Evenly spaced, these light-giving chandeliers were the largest ever built. They were also the only ones ever enchanted by a sorcerer. On the orders of the first queen, who had originally commissioned the palace of Nanfrid, these chandeliers had been given the ability to burn eternally, and they fulfilled their queen's wishes because they had burned for thousands of years. Never had there been a moment when they'd gone out. In the center of these flaming circles stood tall the great flame, a constant reminder to all of whose palace they had stepped foot in. Behind the throne there was a large tapestry. It depicted the Battle of Neridur, the last battle of the Great War. The queen lorded over the bodies of her slain enemies while her men cheered behind her. The great flame, the symbol of the Blesa, was above the queen, proclaiming to all that the queen was anointed with the gods' blessings. The tapestry had been created by the most skilled weavers of the land. It had taken 40 women 3 years to create, a great feat, considering they created it during the great flax shortage. Every citizen, be they the poorest of poor to the wealthiest, had been required to hand over any and all linen thread in their possession. At the end of the shortage, people had begun hiding their scrap thread to keep it out of collectors' hands. There were still women who stockpiled their thread in cellars, for they'd heard the horror stories which were passed on from generation to generation. On the great hall's floor, there was a long purple rug which ran the hall's length. The center of the rug was plain, but the edges depicted the great flame. It was just another reminder to all who entered the space who'd won the war so many years ago. The overall appearance of the Great Hall was meant to impress and intimidate the peasants who came to petition the Queen. And it still did. Yearly there were tales of how peasants would walk hundreds of miles to ask the Queen for help, only to be too intimidated by the hall and the woman herself to ask. Some of these cowards hired professional petitioners. These men would, for a small fee, petition the Queen on behalf of the person paying them. They were very well spoke, good-looking, and usually were able to convince Her Majesty to do as they asked. Others, however, those who were too poor, left without having their petition heard. They were ridiculed by their people and called cowards and fools, for they were. Relaxed in appearance while seated on her throne, Queen Silverlyn was anything but. The yearly wait for news became worse with every year that passed. Especially when her scryers and astrologers continued to predict that her wait would be soon over. The impossibly overwhelming doors to the hall opened. Queen Silverlyn heard footsteps approach her. It wasn't until the person had stopped and knelt before her with a "Your Majesty" that she looked at the man. Road-weary and dirty with dust, her messenger appeared unusually grave. Hiding the unease that flowed through her, she nodded to the man. "Rise, and give me news of your journey." On his feet, the messenger said, "I went to Sondertoft, as you commanded, and watched the newest searchers for the Diviana. 20 in all. They were presented and anointed in the same manner as other years, and then taken into the Hall of Justice. Looking over the searchers, I found no one that I believed would have the brains or skill to succeed in the task at hand, but I continued to be on guard. The next afternoon, the 20 were taken to the island. From my vantage point on the highest bluff, I observed 19 return to the ship by the end of their allotted searching time. As the ship waited for the last person, the earth beneath my feet suddenly shook and the seas became rough and dangerous. This has never happened before in all the years you have sent me to the Lixvard Festival. I continued to watch as the ship left the last person on the island and returned to shore. Listening to the 19 as they relayed tales of their search, I learned that nobody had found even a clue to finding the Diviana. It was then that I heard someone yell that a woman in a boat was coming toward the port. Running with the townsfolk toward the harbor, I saw this woman, a slave of no importance, in clothes made of finest cloth, carrying a staff of unquestionable beauty. Upon arriving on shore, she stated that she had found the Diviana. "A slave found the Diviana?" Queen Silverlyn inquired, leaning slightly toward her messenger. She must have heard her man wrong. No slave would have the knowledge or skill needed to find such a powerful object. "That was her claim, Your Majesty. The townspeople, ignorant as they are, did not believe her. They were more apt to call her thief and witch than her liberator. After the group broke up, I followed her to an inn, and then fueled the surrounding town people's ignorant ideas. I spread word that she was a dangerous, conniving witch and must be killed before she harms anyone. In doing so, however, I lost track of her." "You what?" Queen Silverlyn rasped. "You lost a little slave?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Unbeknownst to me, her master's family threw her out, abandoning her to whatever fate would come upon her. Once this knowledge came to me, I immediately tried to find her. I regret to say I did not succeed," the messenger said, his head bowed in shame. "You fool! How could you lose one as important as she? How could you let her out of your sight?" "I am sorry, Your Majesty." Trying to rule in her rage, she asked, "Do you know where she is now?" "Well, I do not know exactly where she is, Your Majesty. I do have an idea where she is most likely headed. Before I left town, I heard that a ship grander than all the others in port had left Sondertoft the night the slave disappeared." "Who does this ship belong to?" Queen Silverlyn asked, even though she had an idea as to what the answer might be. "Mistress Astrid of Henfred," the messenger said. Swallowing bitter curses, she said, "You've provided me valuable information. Go rest your weary body." "Yes, Your Majesty." Striding quickly, the messenger moved toward the nearest exit. Before he could make it, however, Queen Silverrun asked one more question. "What is this slay's name?" Turning back to face her, he said, "Willow Niviarsik." With a final nod from her, he left. "Did you hear, Alvis?" Queen Silverrun asked. Coming out of the shadows, a man wearing rich clothes walked toward the Queen. "Yes, Your Majesty, I heard every word." "It appears that interfering woman is helping the little slave. Why? What are her reasons?" "Perhaps, Your Majesty, she seeks to help this woman learn how to control her powers," Lord Alvis suggested. "No," Queen Silverrun said. "It must be something more than that. Astra does nothing out of the kindness of her black heart. She must want something from this Willow." After a brief pause, she said, "Send my best men to Henfred, and have them eliminate this nuisance before she becomes too strong. Also have them bring me whatever is in her possession. I want control of the Diviana." "Yes, Your Majesty, at once. However, there is that little problem." "Yes, Alvis, I remember all about that damned boundary. But she has to come out of safety sooner or later, and when she does, she will die." "Of course, Your Majesty, as you wish." As Alvis turned to carry out her wishes, Queen Silverrun asked, "How goes the search for the Vegans?" "Our men continue to scour the island, but we are still unable to find them." "You would think that enough time has passed that one of them would make a mistake out of arrogance." Queen Silverrun mused, not surprised by the news. "Very well. Continue the search." Alvis bowed again and left the hall. "The Diviana has been found. Soon it will be in my possession, and I will show those pathetic Drivia that nobody can defeat me or the royal house of Nanfred."
This work is released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike license. Do what you want with it. Remix it, re-record it, transcribe it, share it. Just don't sell it or change the terms of the license. Your creation must be released under an Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike license. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.